So welcome to Gamechanger Project. I'm here today with Nancy Bekhor. Nancy is a consciousness wayshower. Now, if you've never met a consciousness wayshower before, she's absolutely remarkable, wise woman. You're in for such a treat today, and I've been so excited about this conversation. A little bit about Nancy. Nancy founded the Vital Life Center in Hong Kong, like back in the 80s, as a holistic, integrative, healing consciousness center in Hong Kong. And this was when, that kind of thing wasn't just not common, it was unheard of. Nancy's an absolute pioneer, and she's brought a thing to Australia now called Lucia Light. I've just had an experience of it myself, which was remarkable, to say the least. I am still kind of trying to figure out what just happened. The Lucia Light, it's been used for, essentially it's raising consciousness. Will you just tell us a little bit about what that actually is? And then I really want to get into your story and who you are and what is Lucia Light?
Maybe a simple question, not a simple answer. Human beings are consciousness, and everything in our external life is a generation of our internal consciousness. We have not been brought up that way. We have been sent to school. We have been told that there's things we don't know and we need to learn, that we need to know how to make it in this world. And yet, the truth is that the whole of life projects from inside our consciousness to the outside. Plato spoke about that we live as shadows on the wall. But the time has come for the direct connection to each our own consciousness. So Lucia Light is an accelerated method of accessing and coming to work in partnership, as it were, with our consciousness. We no longer need gurus. We don't need people, and I'm talking about the principal at school. We can find all the answers within, and we have so many stories.
Wow.
The possibility of what the human being can make happen is extraordinary. It is not just for the lucky ones. So a person sits with light on them that moves in certain frequencies, and there are beautiful colours. It's not an entertainment, but it is extremely entertaining. Basically, when we use the word consciousness, we're talking about the inner world. Yogis who meditate in caves for years, or people attempting to meditate now. And consciousness is not just a floating cloud of peace. Consciousness is the active engine that creates all our life, the way our life is. When we are brought up as children, our parents believe, and children don't like it, but the parent thinks, here's an empty vessel. They need to be taught.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to function in the world. But actually, it's all a game of smoke and mirrors. We generate reality, all of it, the good stuff and the bad stuff. So in these years now, there is a shift in consciousness. Some people know about it, other people don't know what the hell we're talking about. To the people who know, I am talking. Meditation and even breath work, they're called the psychedelics, along with plants. The World Health Organization has explained that psychedelic state of consciousness is the newest field of health. That's why I'm in it. And it isn't really for me to tell you anything about your consciousness. It is for you. I am assisting people to experience deeper and deeper connection in their inner world, not just to be quiet and calm, but to create the reality, to be magnificent, to be called lucky. The way children feel that things should just happen, and then adults become exhausted at the thought and stoic that life is limited, there isn't enough money or there isn't enough time. All that is an old script that is passing away. There's no dogma, I can't teach you anything. But the Lucia, which you've just experienced, begins to wake up something inside and ask me what you want. And I'll tell you.
Wow. I mean, you're right. I just had this experience with the light, and it absolutely blew my mind. It was absolutely remarkable. I couldn't have anticipated, and there's no point describing it to people because you've got to experience it. Like I could say words, but
it's not even important what it was.
Yeah.
It's what's going to occur with you in any field. So writers, artists, performers love the light because they know they have to get to that place, the place of their creativity. Lucia opens that door. I did trials for people with depression and anxiety because it was upsetting to see so many young people come here suffering. The Lucia restores the joy in being here because the young people who come forward now are a little shocked at the way the world is. It isn't very nice. We have wars. We have poverty. And when I grew up in the 60s, you know, we were all anti the Vietnam War and wanting things to be different because it was that generation that I come from. But it eventually looked like you're up against an immovable force and it's called the way life is. But it turns out that it isn't.
Who speaks like this? This is remarkable. So I get, you know, back in the 60s, Vietnam, all this stuff, then the 70s, 80s happened, Vital Life Centre, and then I know there was opportunity to go to UK with that.
I'm a pioneer. I have no interest in the status quo. And some people hate me for this because why do you follow that? Oh, because it's always been not interested. Just wipe the table of all the stuff that was. Love it. But I was still learning in that phase. And I had 9 years at university, so I was an intellectual. And my study was engineering and pure maths and philosophy.
Wow.
I come to understand now why I had such a background, but certain aspects of that intellect had to break down because the problem with intellect is it only knows the history of things that happened, and things should always happen that way, but they don't. I can tell you a story of materialisation. I sat at home one day. I'm with my autistic son, sort of in a 20-year retreat.
I want to hear more about that too.
And someone gave me a pair of high stiletto shoes and I thought, they look like fun to wear. But they seemed so dangerous when I put them on my foot. And I read in Google that you had to be very firmly in them. So I thought, I wish that I had a set of inserts. I don't have any. And 20 minutes later, I went out onto my balcony and there was a perfect set of inserts sitting on the ground that I needed. Where did they come from? It doesn't even matter. I asked everybody around, did they lose a pair of inserts? Nobody did. But you know what? Even if the wind blew them in from next door, why do they arrive at the moment that I asked for them? There are many stories down that line.
So what do you make of that? Because I think everyone's had that kind of experience. You know, they think of someone and they call, or they need something and it shows up, and we just go, oh, that was lucky, or that was, but what's going on there?
That's what we need to discover. So although I was the scientist and I want to know, and as the engineer, I particularly would measure things to find out they're going to be this, and we measure it. And we get the bell curve, which is how things are predictable. The things that I have seen break all the laws of physics, all the laws of physics. But so I say that story is one of my legends. But things happen all the time. Last week, I was thinking, I really need a metal 1 metre ruler. I wish I had a metal 1 metre ruler. And 3 days later, outside the office of where the Lucia is, was a metal ruler just left on the pavement. I took it home. How can I explain that to you?
Yeah.
I'll tell you something from mathematics. Okay. When we study the world as it is, as an engineer does, we use applied maths. And it goes to 3 dimensions, if you like, because we live in this 3-dimensional world. However, when you look at pure maths, it has unlimited dimensions. That always fascinated me. It meant that all the laws that should operate to allow multi-dimensions to occur, we have it in the mathematics. But there was a gap because in those days, I could never see that reality. It's infinity. Pure maths is basically proving infinity all the time, that infinity exists. So, you know, when you say we all have that, well, yeah, infinity. The point is, what could multidimensional even mean? And I'm not even going to answer those questions because that's when you go and you want to be connected with your consciousness, which allows you to fantasize and dream. And yet those things can occur in this reality.
How, I mean, from an intellectual university, 9 years in uni, maths, pure maths, engineering, philosophy, obviously, you know, brilliant, and really looking at the intellectual side of things, to now be having this kind of conversation, looking at consciousness, everything's possible. It's right, there's a gap there. So give me some of the key points, some of the key moments when you realised that everything that, you know, we were looking at as intellectuals wasn't necessarily the whole story.
It's nothing to do with the story. It's just a game we play. So when I went to university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I chose engineering because no girls did it. Why not do that? Be the only woman. I studied the physics. I loved it. So that's how all that works. Probability theory, materials engineering. This is how the physical world works. And then I didn't want to be an engineer. So I began to study philosophy and pure maths. I didn't find what I was looking for in philosophy. All I learnt was what people thought. Again, it's historic. It's based on the past.
I mean, we've got to learn from history to be able to move forward, don't we? Isn't that?
That's what they say, but it isn't the case, because from history it'll say, no, you can't produce something you need on the street in front of you. They say that there is a new physics for consciousness itself. My job really is to get people excited. How can I know that? How can I feel that? Yogis in the cave produce miracles. So we all know we're not going to go off and live in a cave, but we don't have to. Lucia technology like that and other psychedelic generators allow us to experience inside. Now you asked me, how did I, jump across?
Yeah.
So I couldn't find what I was looking for. There was this thing that I seemed to know as a child, but it wasn't there. And then I became involved I think I was at that time wanting to be a singer.
Okay.
And it was very difficult for an intellect to express themselves emotionally. I could do anything. I could get 100% for anything. Why can't I do this? And I went to my first personal development workshop, which, like intellects and the way we operate when we go to touchy-feely things, is aghast. It's only my brilliant head that we need. However, I did my first personal development workshop and I began to understand about emotion. And that emotion was part of the engine that creates the world we have. And when people hear emotion, intellects don't want emotion because they get foggy, except they never touch truth. As intellects, we can only look at what is there, but we cannot create what was never there before. So I just knew in my heart there wasn't enough. So I began to understand the power of emotions, and I saw grey people who came in become bright and passionate, and here was the way through. So my heart opened. I never even knew that was experience. I was quite happy that I didn't even have a body. I'm laughing now because embodiment is how all the things get generated. It is so ironic. Anyway, I then do a course, or I study under a master, body detoxification and transformation. Now, in the 80s, that was avant-garde.
Sure.
The lame could walk and the blind could see. It was so amazing. Based on a Chinese system, 5-element theory. And so I became a missionary. I was so excited because it was like people could lift their pain. Pain could leave. And I, as a missionary, went to Hong Kong, did no market research. I don't do that. It was like, people want this, they're going to want it there. And I went there.
How'd you pick Hong Kong?
I was going to go to New York.
Okay.
I packed up the house because I have
From
many
Melbourne?
cousins in Manhattan.
Okay.
And I went to a wedding and I told them about the course, the body transformational course, and they all wanted it. So I thought, perfect, packed up the house, ready to go to New York. But a voice, I was listening to the voices in my head at that time, and it said, don't go to New York first. You need to be more slick. You need to have experience. So I went to a map of the world with my eyes shut, and Hong Kong came out. So that's where I went. Now, hey, my parents were married there, but my family is all over the world, so not such a big surprise. So I become this impassioned person explaining that if you cared what you ate, you would not have the kinds of body ill health that you would. You wouldn't have cancer. You wouldn't, and in fact, it's all the things that we now take for granted. This was the beginning. And these were the people risking their lives with the authorities, even talking about it. It was illegal to cure yourself other than by traditional models. Incredible as it may seem. But many things have changed. I still did not find what I needed, even with that centre.
So tell me about the centre. What did that look like at its...
I had 30 practitioners.
Yep.
It was like a university of ethical business and personal development and consciousness awakening. But I still had not fully awakened. I was constantly seeking something, but I didn't know what it was. And I still prided myself on my intellect.
Yes.
Because we were still dealing with the known world. And then it happened. I had a son at the end who was like an angel, who appeared to be like everybody else up until the age of 3. But he actually is profound and was profoundly autistic. And I had been invited to London to open up an integrative medical centre under the auspices of Prince Charles, and it seemed like a big opportunity for me.
Because, I mean, the Vital Life Centre had been wildly successful.
Yeah, but we had to shut it down when my son was born and all the events that occurred at that time. But I never shut down. It's just that isn't open there. So we were in London. He was 3 and he fell down with his first seizure, and I said, I'm a healer and a mother. And it's all very well, all my career agenda. Forget about that. I'm going to go back to Melbourne and bring him and work out. Because if we worked out every other disorder, why can't we work out neurology?
Wow.
This has been a journey where it turned out it was the other way because he was teaching me. It is through being quietly at home with him, I was kicking and screaming in the beginning, that I began to watch things happen in my reality that were not explicable from anything that I had learned.
Give me some examples.
Materialising objects.
Yeah.
So it's not just about a parking spot. It's not just about thinking about somebody when they ring. It's about your life wishing for something. You know, we're told not to be dreamers. Be a dreamer. You have no idea the power linking to the greater self. Yeah. So the Lucia Light, developed by 2 doctors in Austria. One of them had a near-death experience. He's a psychotherapist. He had a near-death experience when he was 7. And in near-death experiences, there is the light, the wishing never to come back. And there is a reboot. You get another chance at life. And he was obsessed with light. And when he did his thesis at university, it was on near-death. And he said, I could speak to someone for an hour a week for 5 years and never cause the change in them that a near-death would. And how we got the light was it wasn't going to work to hypnotise people and tell them they died. So he began to look at the light itself. And it became an external light because people who cannot visualise the light. So we had this light. But that light has got further stories to it and how the frequencies work.
I want to get more into that, but before we go there, Marley, your son, how old is he now?
He's 24.
All right, and so at this time, you're running this centre, you've got this opportunity, Prince Charles, Sir Richard Branson, London, all this is happening, and you're going, no, back to Melbourne. And how did that work? Because this is your journey, this is your evolution. This was really kind of, it sounds like one of the key turning point. And you'd already done a lot of work, got into your heart, embodiment, understood detoxification.
Well, I hadn't really got into my heart fully. I had moments of being in my heart at a workshop.
Yep.
And perhaps a few days later, and then, as you know, it all just disappears, back in the world, working, calculating what to do. Yep. But he stopped me in my tracks. In the beginning, I went through mortification of the soul. Why is my son not normal? He can't read, he can't this. And that was the big changes. Secrets of Autism is a book that I've written about that, where I began to understand that it was only love, that I loved him. And then I began to accept that it was my difference that I hadn't accepted. You see, we go to school and there are certain ways you're supposed to be. And if you are not that way, and who is, we suffer. And we're comparing ourselves with other people. And our parents say you should be more this or you should be less that. Well, I was different to other people and I just never accepted it. I'm probably on the spectrum. And he was so different that it began a dark night of the soul. And I finally began to accept my own difference. And that was the beginning. As he began to be able to speak again, because he could speak perfectly when he was little, and he said these incredible things to me. I remember it was like he was like a wise one. And then the seizures came and then he began to not be able to speak at all. So that was a lot of sorrow as a mother. Again, my heart is being wrenched open. But if we cut now to the end, Marley began to speak and Marley began to tell me how I should not be like that. He wanted me to soften. He would melt down if I did not learn how to raise my vibration. And I would have said, but it's not possible to have a raised vibration all the time. It's not possible. We all go up and down, but not, if I want to melt down, I better not do that. It was a gun to my head.
What do you mean by meltdown?
Well, autistic people melt down because they can't take it, what's happening in their environment. This is not naughtiness. It is like if I got nails and scratched some holes in your arm, you wouldn't like it.
Sure.
That's how it is for them, but there is no blood spilled.
Wow.
They feel, he felt my energy. He felt the unsoft. He felt the knot in the heart. I mean, I'm looking at it in hindsight now, but at the time, I was in a war. I was in a war with him. How am I going to keep my sanity? And then I learned that as I learned how to raise my happy level. I call it zone sessions.
Okay.
I learned how to raise my vibration. And he's sweet and I'm sweet and we're always sweet. And then he started on my mother.
Oh, wow.
She was 87 and she was getting that cranky old people stuff. And he began to tell her directly not to talk like that.
Whoa.
And to say sorry. And she would say, well, I'm sorry. And it was completely unacceptable. He changed our family, actually. But when I began to raise my vibration all the time, to simply be around him so that we could be in harmony, that's when the magic started. Long before I got the Lucia. Then I thought, oh my goodness, it's like I've gone through a wormhole. I can make whatever I want appear to me. And of course, there's no scarcity. It's not like, I like your belt, so I'm going to take your belt from you. I don't have to take your belt from you. I will just have a belt come to me. And our society is predicated on scarcity. Yeah. When they began to calculate economics, they said there isn't enough. Yeah. We've calculated into the future and there isn't enough. Yeah. Except there is no account of things coming in from left field, of new inventions, of new creations. And if you look into the history of science, every incredible discovery was done from a dream, in bed, an apple falling from a tree. Universities are proving things, but things that are discovered do not come that way. They come from the madman, if you will believe. And every one of them will tell you there's something inside that if you can begin to listen, you will be guided. We don't need priests. We don't need dogma to guide us. We have an inner guidance.
So you're talking about intuition?
Intuition is an absolute essential thing now.
What is that? Let's talk about that.
First of all, we know intuition as a sense of, I think I should do that or I should do this. Yeah. But you know, with Google now, you can look anything up and half of it's true and half of it isn't. So as much as we may say, well, all the information's on the internet, no. You need all the misinformation. Yeah. You need. Furthermore, people say, oh, when you get old, your memory goes. Excuse me, that's not what it is. Okay. Do you know how big the file is getting? I'm 66. The file of knowledge, the file of experience. You need intuition to get into your own file.
Yeah, wow.
You cannot possibly remember it all, and you're not meant to. Because when you remember things by logic, you are applying the past to the present. Wow. It's now about simply knowing and not putting up with stuff that makes you upset. So one of the key factors with Marley is that I needed to be happy, and I mean happy all the time. And people say that is an unrealistic. Well, the more you consciously direct yourself back to happy than just hearing the news, reading the newspapers, hearing people's bad luck, you just as well serve yourself with the good luck. So intuition is a guidance from within. And as you said before, everybody's had it, but we discount it. Whereas I live for those moments where I know what to do or I know what to say. You know, we say we have 5 senses, and there's 6.
And the 6th
intuition.
sense.
Well, they say in multi-dimensional world there's 600 senses.
Whoa.
What could that possibly mean? What could it mean? So to even go there, you need to break away a lot of the way we think about the world. So that's why meditation and other psychedelic phenomena are important, because all of a sudden your thinking mind drops away and you get access to other information. Yeah. I could have bought something 20 years ago. I don't know why I bought it, and it sits there. And 20 years later, I pick it up and I use it. So what is that telling us? Time is not exactly the way we think it is. To answer that, I'm not going to give you a scientific answer to that. I mean, I wrote my thesis in philosophy, which I deferred, was that time was circular, not linear.
Wow.
And of course, at the time I had to defer that because I didn't know how to explain it. And I wasn't going to regurgitate it. I wasn't going to regurgitate anything anybody said. When you have these unusual experiences, you realise that time is not linear. There is almost no point going further here because we need to open our consciousness. Without the consciousness opened, all of this is meaningless.
And fascinating. So I'm
So
going to keep
fascinating for the
going just to-
intellect. But you know
Absolutely.
what's the best juice? Is having a most amazing life, being healthy, being vital,
Yes.
having adventures, discovering new stuff. And for, you know, now everybody travels.
Sure.
Gee, when you've travelled everywhere, what do? Fly out into space? Well, I'll tell you the destination. The destination is consciousness. And
Wow.
I've got 1 grain of sand out of it. 1 grain. It's an endless task. It's not a task. It's just that we have not even gone there. And we say, well, the yogis can be in the caves and they can do that. And there's a few brilliant men in the world and they can have thought stuff, but we're just running like slaves.
Sure.
Except we have the ability to call stuff up in our lives. We have all of that. But there is some purging to be done.
Sure.
The dark night of the soul. All yogis, if you read them, their works will tell you. You will get that too because we have to clear away the persona that was built up from childhood. I will give you a story about what Lucia can do now. My brother is a doctor and we were always, unfortunately, enemies, it seemed, right from the get-go. I felt that what I was learning about diet was the way. And he felt that what he was learning in medicine, and we fought. I believed in the old days that you had to, you know, force the truth. I don't do that now.
Sure.
And it got worse. And when I went to Hong Kong and then I was invited to London, the gap between us was even stronger. His family rejected me, all the extended family, but I didn't care. I was doing my stuff. And then when I had to return to Australia to tend with my son, I experienced the cruelest rejection and I saw myself as a victim. So I'm talking to you people. You know when you have an upset with someone that can become so entrenched and then you push it down, and in families especially, and there's no change to it. But for me, it was a skeleton in the closet, that there was this break of love with my brother and I. Nothing I could do about it. And one day, I had the Lucia at this time. A friend rang and said, I said, I can't talk to you, I'm about to have a Lucia. And she said, well, why don't you do the thing about your brother in the Lucia? I tell you, we're both in our 60s. It was entrenched. I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. Because the Lucia and intention, look, intention is important, we know. But with the Lucia, because it's an activator, the intention works extraordinarily. So I go into the Lucia and I say, I just want things to be easy and there to be a love flow. I just want it to be easy. Beautiful. And that I have a brother. He doesn't have to believe me or not believe me, but I just want it to be easy. And I had the session and nothing happened in the session. Nothing happened all day. And at night, when Marley went to bed at 11, the download began. I was shown every facet of what it was like to listen to me. I saw the level of ego. Wow. I saw the way I behaved. I saw the amount of pride. And I said, how can you blame a blind man for stepping on your toe and hurting you? He's not conscious about this, and I am, and I get it. And I forgive him utterly. I must have been really difficult to deal with. There could have been a kinder way, or not screaming at him at the top of his voice that his son shouldn't drink milk because he's got asthma, and then watch that child nearly die in hospital. Oh. So I'm screaming, and he took that as an offence. You get it?
Of course.
There could have been other ways to do it, but I forgave myself too. Yeah. So the bottom line was, my brother and I are best friends. Oh. This is unheard of. This is unheard of. And that is what the Lucia can do. And it does it because it's evolutionary. We think of evolutionary as I spent 60 years of my life and I have now evolved. We're talking in a matter of weeks. We can't time. See, evolution isn't a word we even use because it refers to thousands of years and hundreds of years. I'm talking about time.
Millions of years, yeah.
Speeds right up.
Yeah.
So we want to do it. And now for those people who meditate powerfully...
I want to talk about meditation, so I'm glad you circled back to that. What do you... Because obviously with intuition, that's super important. You know, a lot of... You know, we've talked about the yogis in the caves. How important is meditation?
Well,
and
ultimately...
What is that?
Meditation is where you open the door and step into consciousness. We don't care then, even how we did it. Do you get it? And all the fuss is about, I meditate. But it's true. You need to be able to send your mind away. People in this era cannot do it. So the people who are high meditators, they get taken next level. You can talk to them about it. People who can't meditate, the Lucia does what meditation does for them. Mm-hmm. And they begin to get insight. But I tell you, I've met many a long-term meditator who is depressed. Why would that be? It means the doors are still shut. They may have mastered sitting, but that did not mean they entered into their consciousness, because if they did, they would know that happiness and well-being is the order of the day. And I learned about happiness and well-being by being forced to be that way. Yeah. And you could not pretend. I say this to parents of autism. Don't believe that you're having an argument with your husband behind the door. This child feels everything. Yeah. And we are going to become like that. Wow. They may be difficult to deal with. They had to be. Because they will not be changed. And they are holding like crystals. They are holding. It is possible now to enter right into consciousness. Wow. And then we can all get together and tell each other our stories. So as to depression, when I first got the Lucia, the story about the Lucia was interesting because it tells a way about how you live when you no longer think and plan. I had experiences of the light and it was extraordinary. I'm a creative being, held down somewhat by being the single mother carer of an autistic boy with life-threatening seizures. But after the set of, I think, 7 Lucias, all my project moved forward at warp speed. I'm telling you, warp speed, all of them, with no overwhelm. Wow. And then I was excited. I thought, wow, this is something.
This is something.
This is something. And I thought I could bring it to people. And a voice said, you're not running centres anymore, you know that.
Been there,
you
done
don't
that.
need to save people. Right. You know that. So, and another voice said, yeah, but you're only a light attendant. That's all we're called. We're light attendants. We don't ask the person questions. This is it's not a confessional. Yeah. It is put them on the light, they will avail themselves of it. Wow. So I worked out I could get a light and people could have the light. And I'm only a light attendant, so I'm not saving anybody. They'll have their own experience and go away. And the light was very expensive. And I worked out that I could get a loan. See, that's the 3D, linear. I could get a loan from a bank, and then it stopped.
What do you mean by 3D?
The linear way of making things happen.
Okay, what's
I could get a loan.
All right,
I'm going
to come back to that.
The loan will pay it off, and I can do the business model. Yep. That's how it started. And just before I was going to order it, I said, no, I'm not. I'm not doing that. Because Marley already didn't like the person who was sitting there calculating. It was not going to work. I said, I want to be given the light. I want to be given the light. That was cocky. But if you could see the amount I was manifesting and materialising at that time. Yeah. And I rang a friend and I said, I'm not buying the light. I don't want the pressure. My whole time with Marley is about divesting of stress, divesting of pressure. And I did that. And I went home. Even though I had seen, I had actually done a trial of people with depression. That's it. That happened before. Okay. I said, what's the hardest thing? Well, the depressed people are really hard to work with in my field. You lift them up, they go down. Lift them up, they go down. It's too much work. I said, okay, let's see what the Lucia can do. 10 people I brought in. Mm-hmm. And that was 3 years ago. Robust improvement. Wow. Never seen anything like it. Then I said, I've got to bring this light. And so I did the business model. Yeah. Then I said, I can't take that pressure. We can't live together here with me under pressure of I owe money. And in half an hour of having made that statement, I get a phone call from the lawyer. Okay. And he says, there's a trust fund your parents made for you that you could only access when they died. But the legal... it's been changed and you can have this money now. Uh-huh. So I said, okay, I'm buying the Lucia Light. Wow. So you need to know that's how it came. Wow. So these abilities I already had before the Lucia, but it was still, what happened with the Lucia was it consolidated it and it made it more and more so that I live like this all the time. Yeah, wow. My son will say, that voice, change your voice, he says to me. So I know I need to connect to my heart. Yeah. And just speak. And like you said, you can't fake that. No. You can't put on your fake smile and your happy voice. And the joke is, it's like Mary Poppins. It's in all... Mary Poppins, remember they laughed, and when you laughed, you went up. Well, it's true. Yeah. It's true. All of the films, it's all true. But you have to find out for yourself. No amount of questioning me. I can tell you my amazing life. And I am the best, this is kind of the best years of my life because I get to play and create an adventure at the multi-dimensional level. What could that mean? So Nancy, you mentioned something a little while ago. I mean, you've been talking about the inner universe. You've been talking about, you mentioned 3D. I mean, I'm really curious about that. So what do you mean by 3D? What's the alternatives? Because you said, look, it's like science and logic and understanding and intellect is all 3D. And then you've been talking about this inner universe and consciousness and all this. Like, just put that in context for us so we can kind of, draw me a map so I can understand those terms? Well, again, it's a bit of history because all of us know terms like meditation or mindfulness or intuition. We think it means something, but it means other things. I'm going to have this piece of paper because it is so key. So the inner universe is not with thinking. Thinking, intellect, mental, is absolutely no part of the inner universe. Okay. So what's the language? The language is feeling. Now, having been an intellect, horrified, I know that place. Yeah. That's kind of why I'm even talking to you. So feeling is an aspect of the body brain, not the cranium. And part of the journey to high vibration was I began to spend a lot more hours of the day simply feeling pleasure. Pleasure. just for being, like right now. And I learned to master that. And then the subtle state of feelings. Feelings are not just emotions. Feeling is when you say, oh, I just thought of somebody. That's a feeling. Or when feelings is the language. I suppose that doesn't explain anything to you, but partly because we're talking about it in a thinking way. It's an experience that you need to have. So funnily enough, I say funnily enough to me, it's such an irony that the body begins to become the master. Not you. Thanks for sharing. You guide me. It's an embodiment game. Right. So
I recall you told me this story about a monk who looked into his heart to see what was there. Oh. Right? Nothing was there.
That's a beautiful story. It was a student of mine who's a Buddhist, and I was telling him, I want you to have more time when you're feeling the things that make you happy, so the chemicals go through your body, because that lifts the vibration. And he came to me the next day and said, you know, I looked into my heart and there was nothing there. It was barren. And I laughed so hard. I said, your thinker can't look. It's got no access. It's the feelings. That's how you can look into your heart. There's the richness. And I feel there's often a misunderstanding in Buddhism of people, not Buddhism, but people saying, oh, no desire. We're meant to have full desire and full passion. Why be alive? But what we aren't meant to do is attachment. And guess who gets attached? This one. This one is what causes the pain. Gotcha. So there's something that I want to tell you.
Yeah.
So the thinking place that worries about stuff is the matrix. Huh. Now, you hear some people know what I'm talking about, the matrix. Oh, yeah, you know, the powers with certain people and we're all just pawns and it's a matrix. But the matrix we need to deal with is the one in here, the one that tells me I can't do it, the one that tells me I'm no good. And the feeling state of pleasure as it rises has a war. There will be a war fought with the part that says you are, you know, within the matrix. So don't worry about the matrix and what they're doing outside. All the power comes from the inner consciousness. Yeah. But if you don't go there, you can never clear the matrix and begin to have the magic.
Wow.
So intuition is the first one of those senses.
Yes.
It's a feeling state. And embodiment and connection in the body, not fleeing the body to be purer. The body is, and we know what the church did about the sinful beings that we are. That's just the matrix. Just get over it. Begin to discover, and to do that, we need to have deep meditation or other psychedelic experiences. Now, the world has changed. You may see the worst things happening in the news, but if you focus your attention elsewhere, the world has changed. I mean, I remember standing behind a Telstra employee who had, I'm gay, I'm straight, I'm fusion, When would you see that in the 60s? When would anyone read that? The world is changing. It's not changing fast enough for the young, because it's like a hellhole still for them. And some of them are checking out. Yeah, I have to admit, because it's not kind enough here. We're living in a world they never expected to come to. What I will do with you is try and exercise in a way.
Okay.
Because what we use, the body's important, the body's intelligence is important, not really interested in what you think up there, learning to divest that. And imagination. We begin to develop our in the journey into consciousness, the multi-sensory imagination, because that's how we create our reality. Now, we dream, but we mostly don't remember it. I'm talking about kind of dreaming in real life. So how does a person who's a straight thinker even do that? Now, you may have heard of multidimensionality and 3D and 5D, okay? It doesn't even matter if you believe it. It's good for your brain to begin to exercise itself in a subject that it knows absolutely nothing about.
Okay.
So it's like haiku in Zen, the sound of one hand clapping. I'll tell you a story. Many of our galactic brothers and sisters, remember, it doesn't matter if you believe this or not, it's an exercise for your brain. They don't use time. What do you mean that? What could that mean, that they have no use for time? They do everything by serendipity. What is serendipity? Serendipity is the right things happening at the right time. Nothing's planned. I want that ice cream, the person turns up with the ice cream. They live like that. Again, it's irrelevant whether you believe it. Even just beginning to imagine what it would be like that everything you needed turned up. Do you know how much stress in our world is caused by time and the keeping up of time?
All of it.
A friend of mine has an autistic son who managed to make it and get a job and hold it down, but he doesn't do time. So he checks his watch every 3 minutes, poor thing. He is obsessed with trying to follow time so that he turns up at the right time to work, and he's an alcoholic. Time and money are the ways that we whip ourselves. Is there a way out of it? How could it come? How could it be created? That's something that, what are the resources we have for that? We just have our body and we have the feeling state in our body. And I can't teach it to you. I can just say that I've been there and I see it, and there are many who have on this planet. And they say the evolution of mankind and consciousness is upon us. Remember the Renaissance? All of a sudden, people became more humanitarian and that beauty could come from people, and we had that phase. This is the new phase. Some people hear the Mayan calendar ended. I don't know who's listening, but it was not the end of the world. They simply said it was the end of time. Now, it still looks like we're playing in time, but some of us know how to play out of time. Can you imagine how much stress would go away if you woke up when you wanted to and you did what you wanted to? So here about the Lucia, they say the Lucia is a third eye, pineal gland activator. So what's the pineal? Well, medical science will tell you that the pineal atrophies at the age of 11 and it comes back online at death, but it's not necessary. Of course it atrophies. Because do we say to a child, because the pineal is our link with our greater self. You want the wisdom, you want the news, you want to know where to go to get something, apply upstairs.
They called it the seat of the soul, didn't they?
All of it. Yeah. But it's all things that are distant and you can't reach. So children at school are not told, would you like to play now, or would you like to come into the room? Do you want to speak? Do you want to answer that? No. Exact opposite happened. Yeah. So what use have they for a pineal that is going to inform them, inform us, we were children, that was going to tell us exactly what we needed to do, and then we were going to be honoured to do it. So we didn't, and the pineal atrophies.
Because it's not getting used.
It's not being used, and it will be used at death, because at death we move into our multidimensional sense.
Yeah.
So the Lucia wakes up the pineal. And this must be one of the reasons why we can link. I have seen people do things so much faster when they have Lucia. So serendipities. Serendipities are these random, apparently coincidental things that just seem to happen in your favour. And they happen to me all the time, every day. I could speak for hours about it. I'm not going to. You'll just have to have your own.
Yeah, everybody's had that, right? It's just do
now
they
we're
notice
talking
or not?
about
Do they pay attention?
living it.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
like I used to say, oh, it was amazing this happened. I don't say that anymore. It's normal.
Yeah.
It's normal. So our time has come. I believe in consciousness, and that's why technology is coming. Someone once said to me, isn't it cheating to use the Lucia? And I had to laugh. That's how much we're in the matrix, that we were supposed to suffer.
It's supposed to be hard.
It's supposed to be hard. That isn't the point. But that's how we live here, the struggle. That's the matrix. But guess who runs the matrix show? Don't look outside to some super powerful being who owns all the industries. It's in here.
Look in the mirror.
So when you do the Lucia, just as if you were in a cave with a yogi having a dark, you will have these ego purges where you will recognise there is something about what you do is not helping you. And it's what I call the new rite of passage.
Okay.
So rites of passage, we don't really have them in the West, in our society. In tribal places, there is a rite of passage. At 13 or so, you have to go into the forest alone with nothing, and you have to make it. Now, what happens in that rite of passage is they are left with nature and themselves. And it will be scary until they break through. And when they break through, the food they need is there. The animals they need will not hurt them. And when they come out of there, they are powerful. It's not mummy and daddy who did it. That is when they properly make the division with their parents, because they got the direct contact to their power. They made it out of the forest. I believe we have rites of passage now, because you will be guided to do something that seems scary, and then you do it. And I suppose there's a reason in our society we don't have rites of passage, and children stay because we never own our power.
Yeah.
Because you could argue that our power is a problem. It was a problem for the authorities that controlled us, whether it was religion. Now is the time for us to know our own power. We're not going to hurt other people, because to get through into inner universe, you will discover your heart, and you will discover, people talk about love, but love is a form of light, and it's a hell of a lot easier one to get on with other people. But the primary love that needs to occur for yourself. So there's a Tibetan Book of the Dead, you know, all the steps when you die. I'm telling you, these are the steps that occur when you make that inner breakthrough. And people say, you look happy. What's happened? And some of us have dark pasts. We all do. We've come to terms with all of them. This is why you can end up having several lives in one life, because you learn what you were meant to learn. And life wasn't meant to be a hard test. So 3D is where we just said life is limited. 5D is, that word is used, and it's a bit of a joke because it's a sort of 3D word and it sounds very linear, but we need to express it somehow.
Sure.
Where things happen that you want. And if you know, people say, follow your bliss and it'll happen. The point is, all of that's true. But for it to be true, your key cannot be your thinking. You need to learn how to stop thinking, and the incredible intelligence will come forward. Science is discovering this. All of it is discovering. I'm here because the Lucia speeds it up.
So you're saying we should discard our intellect, not have discernment,
You will learn. It's a learning. I like my intellect to come up when I need it. Oh, okay, I spoke. But it will speak, and it will speak my knowledge.
Yep.
But I can just as well speak to someone who's totally uneducated, because education is a problem.
So
you can get knowledge just because I said so. Marley, my son, how does he know the things he knows? I watched him manifest. He couldn't even read. How does he manifest the things he wants? He gets everything he wants. I'll never forget, he loves blowing bubbles. He's an artist and his work is amazing. But he loves bubbles. He just relaxes when he watches bubbles. And I remember he said, I want to have something where you just press and something comes out. I said, I learnt never to say no to him. I said, that sounds interesting, but they don't have them. I've never seen that. And then we go out to lunch and we're sitting outside and he said, I want to blow bubbles. I said, when you finish lunch, we're not going to do it here. And then bubbles wafted across as I finished saying that. And there was a girl with a device, as he had described. And she was a lawyer and her brother was a teacher and she was giving him his birthday present. Wow. And that happened. That's when I saw with him, what is this? But all I had to do was stay on the horse of happiness. Yeah. I wasn't working anything out. Yeah. So the tip is, it's a feeling thing.
Wow.
It's a feeling thing. And of course, I'm telling you nothing because you have to discover it. Otherwise, I have power over you. Yeah. If I tell you, this is all, I can't tell you because you will have your own way of connecting and knowing. But we need it faster now.
So you did all this because you had to.
Yeah.
Right? To be with your son, you had to, otherwise he was going to have seizures and meltdowns and there's no choice. And I mean, it was hard and took time. And
I felt sorry for myself in the beginning.
Bad.
Poor me, rejected by the family. And I had a high-flying career all over the world, and now my son is at home talking gibberish and falling down with seizures. I know, it's a long journey. It's a long journey in the cave also. Except now, it can all come faster. People actually do not need to have these decades of experience. It's the time.
All right. Well, let's talk about Lucia for real. What's it for? Because this is...
It's a meditation lamp.
Okay. What's that mean? What's that mean?
Well, it's a lamp that assists you to meditate.
Okay.
But meditating is merely how to turn the handle. Meditation is learning meditation is turning the handle. I'm going to keep saying this, to open the door, to go in. That's not meditation. Meditation is the opening. We've got to open the door. And so loose people find it very hard to meditate. And the more intellectual you are, the more you just think the truth lies in what you know. Yeah. It's all about what you don't know. And people find it hard to dispense with thinking. Lucia does it fast. And so people they begin to be able to meditate. They get answers to issues. One day people go to psychics, there won't be any psychics to go to because we will have that access. Wow. We will have all that and we're meant to. It's our birthright. I look at Marley, he can't even cross the street himself, he doesn't even see, and yet his world works. Actually, I'll tell you an amazing story.
Okay.
When Marley falls with a seizure, see, what we're doing here is trying to change the laws of physics. I'm telling you things that make no sense. He can fall with a seizure and he can have a crash fall, there were times. So fast the head goes to the ground like a guided missile. Why does he fall between two shards of glass? Why does he never get hurt? Then I began to say, oh, he's blessed, He must have angels looking after him. Sure. It doesn't make any sense by the laws of probability that he should not hurt himself.
Every time.
Every time. Oh. And then I remembered something I saw when I was 8 years old. I was at the movies, and in the old days, you always had the shorts that came on before. This was in the 50s. The shorts that came on, and there was a film in black and white where they were studying a man who sleepwalked. And they laid broken glass and upstanding nails all over the floor. If you were awake, you couldn't get through that floor. The ability to balance and walk on your tiptoe, it was impossible. They put the camera on him. He wakes, but he is not sleepy. But he does not look at his feet. He never looked at his feet. He was like an animal. Next thing, he's climbing on the edges of he's hanging and creeping along windowsills. Like his feet knew there was things on the ground. And that always stayed with me, and now I know what it is. There's an oversoul. There's a higher part. There's something that knows everything. And that's what allows this man to walk in his sleep. That's what allows Marley to fall and have the seizure where he is safe. And we all have it. We all have this part, and the accessing of it is going to require a falling back into it. To believe that we are safe, because we've had it all wired up that it's my head that knows the dangers that keeps us safe. Parents tell their children the dangers. But wait a minute, these people are not even hurting themselves in ridiculous situations. Why do some people have remissions? They've got access. Why do some people have it in an accident? You know how there are a car accident, everybody dies and the baby is just safe? What is that? What is that? These are the things I'm interested in. And when you first said, how did I go from an intellect? I wanted to know why. I wanted to know how. I wanted more to life. I wanted to check out a long time ago. I wanted to check out when I was with him. It was so painful. Wow. I live outside the street where I was going to drive in front of the truck that was going to kill us both. Wow. Because he would be safe. He would be coming with me and I would be free. Wow. And then I got the greatest gift that ever was, to know the world is not how I was taught. The world is beautiful. And our money system is going to change. The education system is going to change. The governmental system is going to change. All of it is going to change because the tipping point of people where we want what consciousness brings, we want consciousness to create our life. When children come into the world and expect it to be beautiful. That's what I wanted, and I kept seeking. And the joke was that I thought Marley's poor me, that I have this autistic son and I'm never going to do my work and I'm never going to do my research. Yeah. And what do you know? He taught me. Wow. By doing nothing, I learnt to do nothing and make stuff happen. I used to be such a doer. And people say, you know, I'm nearly 70. How can that be? Because I don't believe in ageing. Ageing is just tired of the same game. Tired of it. Whereas I'm like 20. Everything's possible, anything's possible. But to do that, you need to know what you want. And to do that, you need to listen inside. And that is the skill that needs to be developed. I bring the Lucia because it makes it fast. We are a light body. I can't answer why and what, because guess what? These days, I don't even care. Yeah. The scientist that wanted to know why no longer asks why. Forget the why. Just learn to experience it and have it, and then you'll be telling me stories that will blow my mind. Yeah. Even the way we met. It's just coincidence after coincidence. Yeah. People have a lot of serendipities when they have Lucia. It's one of the first signs that you're beginning to expand to your inner world, where it's not just the parking place right out front. It goes way beyond that.
So I want to get really practical now and really dive into, you know, we keep talking about this Lucia Light. That seems to be the thing, right? And you've done all this meditation, had this amazing opportunity to, and really painful and difficult opportunity to have to do it. But now you're saying that, anybody can do it much quicker and much easier, and we don't have to struggle. And, it's like a cheat or a hack or a shortcut, which is all the
it's a hack.
All the go. This is the hack to be able to get straight into like direct access. So tell me, for people in different situations, like who's it really for? We mentioned someone who's, depression or anxiety. You mentioned someone who's looking for greater creativity. Have you got some examples of?
Well, The Lucia Light, not everybody believes they're spiritually focused. Much of this conversation is spiritually focused.
Sure.
It is amazing clearing for a CEO, for a sales team. When we talk about the bigger picture, we all know that in business with workmates, you need to see the bigger picture to really understand how, let's say, the business is progressing.
Yeah.
It's the same story as if I say, I've just manifested a ruler. People in business need to get their results.
Absolutely.
So it is excellent for people who want clarity about their situation, which is kind of intuition.
Yeah, right.
But everybody needs it, not just for the spiritual.
Yeah,
Everybody needs intuition. It can mean the difference between life and death.
Wow.
People who are addiction, for example, addiction and anxiety and depression, I've done trials. People are releasing their addiction. You've got to understand the addicted person, the depressed person actually seeks a higher life than what they see around them. So they become attracted to taking those to make them feel good.
Sure.
Nobody does anything unless they want to feel good.
Yeah.
So, but there has been no access to all that beauty. That's what the Lucia, I suppose, does for them. Wow. You see, I can't even answer. One girl never dreamed. Now she sees now she dreams. One woman said, who was a musician, she said, I don't need the Lucia for my creativity. I am creative, but I do need it to organise me. The Lucia helps me to organise. She's probably very right brain.
It's kind of the opposite of what other people would experience when they're looking for more creativity.
She just says, this is amazing. I can go on my creativity and then I can be extremely organised.
Wow.
And I use the Lucia for that. It's just, it is useful in everything that a human being is present.
Wow.
If you're a student and you've got exams, the Lucia will allow you to absorb at a most extraordinary rate.
Wow.
Because it isn't actually, it's like magnetic tape. We're not using the synapses. We're using something else, which we didn't know we had access. And I think the Lucia and that kind of technology is going to be around for a while, and then later it won't even need to be used.
Yeah.
As the human being DNA is changing, this is a help for this time. And I like it. It's a beautiful piece of equipment where you sit in front of it and your eyes are shut and you watch the dance of colours.
Yes.
And it's just like walking in a park, some say, with a dappled light. It's beautiful. It goes way beyond just light therapy. Oh, in winter it's good to have colour, but that's true. Sure. It helps in that way too. But let's just talk about technology for a moment, because the diehards will say, well, you shouldn't use a device. You should be able to just naturally meditate. Yeah. This body is technology. We have been using technology. The genius of the design of this body. Who designed it? I'm not going to answer that. It is a genius of design for consciousness to walk about on this plane. It's all technology. All of it's technology. It's just that we don't understand it and we take it for granted.
We're born with it, so we think it's... So you don't make a huge distinction between like innate technology that we were born with versus technology that we created.
Right.
You go...
And by the by, where did all that new technology come from that could never have been heard of before? But back to the Lucia. People these days know they're meant to still their mind and relax.
Yeah.
They know they're meant to do it. And for a simple thing to be a mother and take some sessions to just be able to be that more gentle, kind and sweet to herself and her children. It's basically for everything, because it is a handmaiden to consciousness. Now, again, I said World Health Organization said this is the radical new breakthrough. And some people are doing it with mushrooms and they're doing it with plants and some people are doing it with meditation and breath work. All of that is
Yoga,
amazing.
surfing and...
So Lucia is for a kind of person that likes the idea.
Yeah.
But when you put two of them together, it's really something. But it depends what your goals are, and you'll open a whole new set of goals once. In fact, we don't even use the word goal. Goal sounds like something you've got to strive for. Yeah. Remember, we're trying to just have things happen the way we want them to.
Up. Tell me, I mean, I know you're super smart. You've got this big intellectual background.
Which was a problem.
That
was my biggest problem. It took years. That's why I needed to have a son like that. I couldn't even have a discussion when he's being unfair to talk logic. I wasn't allowed to use logic. I wasn't allowed to use anything, and that's where I learnt that I could get by very well without them.
So, having that experience for yourself, but knowing that other people are still, the vast majority of the population are still very much in that, having that conversation and thinking that's real. When you brought Lucia on, was there a way, did you find any way to, rather than just experientially, well, that was amazing and I'm noticing more serendipity, to kind of objectively measure, if you like, what was going on in the body?
I basically have been undercover. I'm coming out now talking about it. But I used a research device. It's called a Heart Quest monitor.
Oh, yeah.
And it was developed for the astronauts, the Russian astronaut program, those billion-dollar assets out in space. Yep. And there are electrodes, and it reads everything. It reads your stress levels, biochemical, the minerals in your body. Wow. It reads the state of your organs. It goes on to read chakras and auras.
Wow.
Reads all of it, and it reads your biological age.
Okay.
All the neurotransmitters, the hormones, all of it.
Yep.
It's something those Russians developed. And I began to use it with every client. So I studied about 100 people.
One of these things, and
yeah.
So when they're coming in for the Lucia,
I knew the doctors had done their research, but I'm that way. Yeah. I have to see it myself.
Yeah.
I can't talk about things just because somebody else said.
Yeah.
And I found people were losing 10 years in age when they'd have a light session. So think about it.
One session?
You lose 10 years in age, you won't keep it if you only had one session.
Gotcha.
I discovered there needed to be a minimum of some 5 sessions.
Okay.
For example, someone has a mood disorder. They have one session, they feel fantastic, and 3 days later, they've gone down, but it's worse. Because now they've experienced their happy self.
Yeah.
What happens is, after the 5th, it begins to become robust and permanent.
Yeah,
and people on medication can also do the Lucia. It takes twice as long. But nobody has to go off. You go to your doctor if you want to go off your medication, you know. That's not my role.
Sure.
But I proved beyond a shadow of a doubt what it was doing to the body. And think about it. The body's younger, smarter.
Yeah.
Like you were when you were young.
Yeah. Sharper, faster.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Sharper, faster, staying young.
Wow.
Staying younger longer. When people say things like, youth, it's fleeting, and then, no. All of life like that.
Wow.
All of life. And I say, you've travelled all over the earth. Where else is there left to go but discover the truth of who you are and what it can do? It can bring money to you. It can bring you anything you want. Anything you want.
This is absolutely remarkable, Nancy. That they've been able to figure this out, create this thing, or have this, and then you've actually bought one of these. You've got it here in Melbourne, and you allow other people to come and have that experience.
Well, I'm a scientist of the new order, and I researched it actually for several years. I've had it for a long time.
Yeah.
I had to see what it could do before I would offer it, and I've become the distributor now because I believe in it and can make it available. Now there's even a home portal, which is much cheaper.
Well, if someone wants to get in front of a light, what's the options? How can they
I
do it?
recommend they come, they experience the light, and take it from there. It's 5 sessions minimum.
Yep.
I've seen panic attacks stop in 3 seconds.
Whoa.
Now, that's not feasible. You can't run around with a light.
Sure.
But the fact that it can do that should tell you a lot. But some people are intranauts.
Yes.
They want more. They want to go further, and we can do that with them, or they'll buy their own home portal.
Yep.
And some people just come up with, oh, there's a new problem at work. I've got to get behind what that is.
Right.
I'll go and have a Lucia session.
Perfect. It's like maintenance.
Yeah, I see life. It, women deciding, will I be pregnant, won't I be pregnant? And then they just say, I'm clear.
Yeah.
Actually, in Austria, one of the first people that ever the doctors saw was a woman whose son had hung himself. Oh. Now, I don't know if you know, but mothers like that, their life is over. Don't care, they're still walking on 2 legs, still eating. Their life is over. And the doctor said to her, so I'm sure the other doctors were laughing when they sent her to this new light machine. And he said, I'm not going to talk to you because there's no analysis. So why don't you make your next appointment now? So she made her next appointment, went into the session and left. You're not being analysed in this process. We're not interested, really.
Yes.
Then she doesn't turn up to the next session, so the girl rings her and she made another session and she didn't turn up and the doctor said, OK, I'm going to have to call her. She said, I don't need to come. I saw my son and it's all OK.
Wow.
I thought this could work with Vietnam vets. Yep. And I said, have you done any work in post-traumatic stress?
Yep.
This is clinical, of course. I don't work clinically because all is free to come, but we're not clinical. But the stories are interesting. Sure. He said he had a young man from Afghanistan who was so wrecked that he got cancer when he returned. And then from the treatment of cancer, he got seizures. It was like it was all too hard. They gave him, I think, 15 sessions, which is not much in the scheme of things. And he said, I saw the killing fields and I understand. Wow. And it's all okay. So what he understands is what's in your inner life. Yeah. It's something for each individual. And I think you know. Everybody knows. Now it's the time to have it as the main experience, not the news about what egos rampantly running around the world are doing and what you should be afraid of and what you protect from. How about enjoying life? And I found that the key to it was enjoying it.
Yeah. There's a clinic in Melbourne. People can come and have an experience and it's ridiculously affordable.
Lucia Light, Melbourne.
Lucia Light, Melbourne. They can book in and just come and do that, right? And then there's a home one that you mentioned. A home.
Now that people can inquire if they want one
buy a light,
for their
have
home.
it in my house.
Yeah.
Amazing.
There's another aspect of the Lucia where bosses offering that for their staff.
Okay.
Offering the Lucia, which is some of the reasons people buy the Lucias.
Yep.
Their staff, I have to admit, you might lose a staff.
Yeah, sure.
But they never should have been there.
Yep.
They never, that staff that's working for you, but then they're working
not
against
really there.
you.
Yeah.
And someone else will come.
Yeah.
But with practitioners, psychotherapists have found, in fact, all people who work, coaches who work with people, always find those people that are stuck. It doesn't matter what you do. And you know what? That causes burnout in the practitioners.
Sure.
Lucia, when they send their clients for Lucia and then they work with them again, the person has already moved and shifted. And so those practitioners sometimes are interested in actually owning a practitioner light. If you talk to me next year, I'll tell you 100 other reasons why this works. And why does it work? Because consciousness is the name of the game. I'm seeing the way it's going to be because practitioners now are getting faster, quicker results with people. In fact, one of the reasons I use the HeartQuest monitor is I don't want to milk people of money. I don't want them, because of their weakness, to have to keep paying somebody. That's what I love about this. It's quick and you do it and you don't need it anymore.
Get it done.
Unless you have
you want to go deeper or higher.
And I'm really seeing the whole field of what could I call psychological medicine is going to come down to it that the person's going to solve it themselves. And the therapist is going to be, and the coach is going to be a kind of guide onto other possibilities rather than banging on the same old problems, hitting the wall and getting better for a minute and then falling back. I'll tell you a story of a man who actually went off his medication because he'd been having psychotic experiences, and he went off the medication and he said, I had a friend who was interested in this listening, and he said, but I sure, that was 5 months ago, and he said, but I sure love another Lucia. And my friend said, I knew it. You've got to be on it all the time, just like meditation. It's a con. And he got so angry and he said, my mood is completely robust. It's just I like the energy.
Nancy, thank you so much for this time. I'm so grateful. I've learnt so much. I feel like we've been on a it's an amazing journey.
I hope you're excited about the future.
I mean, I've had one Lucia already. I'm excited for my next one, but I'm excited for what's possible for, you know, not just for me, my family, this community, but for humanity, when enough of the right people are actually accessing consciousness through all the different ways you've talked about, whether it's meditation or whether it's, you know, a Lucia so we can do it faster and have a more profound experience without having to sit for years and years and years, and for the intellectuals who kind of stuck in their head to get into their body and have that real emotional experience for maybe for the first time to kind of open up. I mean, it's just so radical. And I'm so thrilled. I sit here with you and your energy and just, you know, your heart for this work. It's absolutely fabulous. I'm so thrilled and so grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then the next thing is for people who are watching this to like just, I mean, go onto the website. You can see all the different stories
Lucia
from
Light
people.
Melbourne.
Lucia Light Melbourne. They'll see stories of people who have had the experience.
Actually, on Facebook, there's posts.
Facebook
stuff.
posts. Lucia
We've
Light
got
Melbourne
so
again.
many stories. We haven't even got them on the thing. Because, you know, the best story is the one that you've experienced.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Just go and have an experience, because all the stories in the world and, you know, all the stories that I heard before I had my thing, once I was there, it meant nothing. And I went, wow, and I can share my story now, but again, that doesn't mean anything to anyone either.
Yeah.
You've got to go and do this. Book in.
Yeah.
That's it. Just book in, go and do it, have an experience, and then see if you want to bring it into your practice, bring it into your business, bring it into your home.
And also, if they want to
or
chat or ask, I'm always happy to explain. I just want it to be I want everybody to have it. Perfect. In a way, it's an elite item, but I have found a way that everybody can enjoy it and have that benefit. And I'm just enjoying the world as consciousness is rising.
Nancy,
Too much fun.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I've so enjoyed our time together.